known for that in some extent as well. So it's always a struggle to find positivity in certain fandoms. But we always do our best.
Nice. Thank you. I didn't count, but that felt appropriate. Thank you. Yeah.
A little more than 10, but I think it's manageable.
Okay.
You're going to have to go that way. It takes me a while to formulate 10 words from like 5,000.
I mean, if it's 15, I'm not going to be mad at you, but it can't be a 4-minute monologue.
All right, I will do my best.
Okay.
My name is Mera Rose. I am I'm known as the Geek of All Trades, Master of None or Master of Many, depending on who you talk to. I'm a costumer, a prop maker, a set designer, a production designer. I do video game streaming with Legion of Seven. I do all kinds of insanity on podcasting with that lady over there, Stasda. We have a new business helping authors. Talk to us about it if you're interested. I was an author at one point. I quit the habit, and now she's trying to convince me to return. I run costume contests. I was the president of the International Costumers Guild for a while, and I think that's as short as I can make it.
That was great.
Okay.
I love it. Thank you.
That's going to be hard to follow. Okay. Hey everybody, I'm Bash. Moniker the Prop Slayer, amateur YouTuber, Instagram post fanatic. Main sources of fandom are Lord of the Rings, old school, OG, PlayStation, Final Fantasy, Legend of Dragoon, RPG style games, and Star Wars. Aspiring member to Mandalorian Merc's Costume Club. So that's me.
Dude, you totally forgot to tell him you're my new best friend, because that was like freaking out.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
The synergy at the center table.
Yeah, that's me. I'd say that was about 10.
Thanks, Bash.
10 words. I'm Larry. I get canceled a lot.
Dude, I want to steal that now that I'm Mera. I try to stop people from being canceled.
There you go. That's
We love you, Larry!
good. So to be fair, your whole thing didn't have to be 10 minutes, just your fandom connection. Or 10 words. Definitely not 10 minutes. So you can have a few more words if
I
you
got
want.
2 left.
Let's do it. Okay.
What 2 are
Two,
they?
yeah.
No, I'm Larry Cree. I'm an author, and I am, because I'm politically active, I often draw controversy in various ways, as some of you know, and we just like to have a lot of fun with that. And my fandoms are, I am a science fiction and fantasy nerd aficionado across the board.
Nice. Thank you. Perfect.
Ben Yalow, I help run conventions.
Ben Yalow, the man who made conventions actually look like they could work and inspired everybody else.
That was the most humble, understated introduction
Ever.
Yes.
Ben, why don't you say a little more about your history of fandom?
I've been active in fandom since '71. I've been to roughly 900 conventions at this stage.
That part.
Yeah, I've worked on probably around 300 or so, ranging from Gopher up to, I just chaired the last WorldCon this past October. I worked on the very first Star Trek convention, and have been involved with fanzines. If there's part of fandom that I haven't been involved in, it probably hasn't been around for very long.
So you haven't branched out into anime yet?
Actually,
Yeah.
No, I wanted him to tell about the anime stuff.
when anime was first coming over to the U.S., when it was being called Japanimation, LunaCon, which was the convention that I was on the convention committee of, was the first convention in the very, very early 80s to have a Japanimation room. So yes, anime convention.
Yeah. So if you are lucky enough to find Ben unattended near the bar at any time and you sit down and talk to him, It will be the most incredible 5 to 500 minutes of your life.
And make sure you buy him a drink for his time, because he's well worth it. He will impart more knowledge
The
than you will
beverage of
ever.
his choice. It is always the highlight of my con. So, as we go, so I'm Marisa, I'm a second-gen nerd, so I come by my nerdiness real honestly. My dad raised me right. And I grew up in Kern online fandom, which was a very special place for a little while. What up, girl? And just kind of generally jump around. So as we're going to jump around, that's how I also moderate. What is something that either makes you feel really welcome or you like to do when you meet a new baby nerd coming? We'll get into the controversial shit, I promise.
Okay.
No, we don't.
Actually, hold on. Are there? Stand up if you're under the age of 18,
Yeah.
please. Just give us a heads up.
Wait, can I pretend?
You can pretend all you want, but I
But
know
I've
your
heard
age,
your mouth.
baby girl.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, we're good.
There may be content in this
No,
panel that might not be
she's
appropriate.
good. We can.
Okay, we're
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but let us start with like the welcome we want to see in the world, right? So either what's something that has made you feel really welcome as you've gone into these new worlds, or what is something that you like to do when you meet, and I say baby nerd knowing that that is a very broad term, like they could be grown-ass adults just coming into the world for the first time, or first con, or whatever that might be. You can popcorn or I'll call on you.
Yeah. All right.
Go for it.
Honestly, the first thing is just what type of thing draws them to a specific series, a specific fandom. What is it that they like, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's fantasy, whether it's anime, different power systems, is it the world or the characters that draws them? That's always the first thing that I like to see what draws people to a fandom, and then start discussing from there, branching out further, and drawing them more into it. Start with what they like, then there might be other things that they don't like, but you know, it's always a good starting
Start
point.
with the positive.
Exactly.
Very good.
I always like to assume that if I'm meeting somebody new at a convention for the first time, that the universe has brought us together for some reason and we have something in common. Fortunately, I have yet to be disappointed in that. But the majority of the new people that I meet in conventions have lots of questions about costuming, about building costumes, about how to compete in costume contests, about how to make their favorite characters on the screen come to life. And I've been very fortunate to make thousands of costumes professionally and as an amateur. And so I just love imparting knowledge. So that's a lot of what I do is interact with people through what they love and teach them how to make what they love, or at least get them interested in coming to a panel about how to make what they love. But I also have a tendency to find people in other areas, like I'm a huge Star Wars fanatic myself. And I'm an insane video gaming nerd. We have an esports team called the Legion of Seven, and all 7 of my family are actually part of it. And so we play together, we game together, we meet a lot of gamers, and we end up bringing them to conventions that aren't gaming conventions, where there aren't video gaming conventions, because they're like, dude, this stuff is so cool. Where do you know, how do you make these things? How do you get into this stuff? And I'm like, you should come to DragonCon. You should come to MarsCon. You should come to LibertyCon, you know. Basically figure out where they're from and find a convention that's closest to them and tell them how to get involved in their community.
For me, it's finding something unique about like a costume or a prop, or like something that they might have on their table, and keying in on that thing. Like, that is really interesting. How did you make that one thing? Or where can I get something like that? And then expanding on it from there, like finding a vein, kind of like a doorway to open, and then going in that way. Because usually when you key on that tiny little detail, as a prop maker myself, that you scrutinize the ish out of your own work. So when somebody appreciates that level of detail, like going in and seeing like, oh man, like the pommel of a sword or something like that, like how did you get it look that metallic? Or you know, how did you differentiate like the difference between like the metal or the leather or whatever else it is? Like really keying on those small details that you know the maker is very proud of. That getting the appreciation out there. That's how I kind of make people feel welcome. Like recognize the hard work and the hours that go into all those tiny little details.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time talking about nerdy book stuff.
Ah.
Just a lot of hours. Yeah, a lot of hours hanging out with people talking book stuff. And I've had cons where I've been a guest where basically we were stuck there, you know, and no way out, and it wasn't really my scene. My wife and I were at a small con once, and the other stuff wasn't really what we were into. And I was like on one panel a day, so I actually wound up spending. I played like 5 RPGs in the game room over 2 days.
Okay, I totally not want to play RPGs with you this weekend.
And I had a great con. I would play an RPG until, and that was like me being on the other side.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it was like fandom that it was a con based on stuff I didn't know anything about, wasn't into.
Yeah.
But I spent so much time in that game room, and then I'd be like, oh, hey Larry, you're on a panel. Oh, gotta go, guys. Bought my character, I'll be back. And that's what I did for 3 days. So there's always something to do.
Awesome.
For me, what I try and do is listen. Find out what people are interested in. And then say, okay, what can I do to add to that? You know, what do I have a particular viewpoint that might be interesting? Do I have a piece of spare knowledge that might be interesting? Do I have a book that I think they're going to like? And I know where I've got a duplicate copy of that. Here, have a book. It is a rare convention when I'm not finding myself giving away books out of my duplicate set. On the other hand, what got me to my second convention, I went to my first convention because John Campbell, who most of you don't know, but basically John Campbell is responsible for creating the field. He was the editor of Astounding and Analog from the late 30s until he died in 71. And basically he created the field. I can go on forever about Campbell, but I had written a letter to the editor, and so I had to go to that first convention because he was going to be guest of honor, and it was a convention in my city. So I'm a 19-year-old kid. I walk up to him and say, could you please sign this book, because I brought a book for him to autograph. And he signed the book, which I still have, obviously. And he looked at my name tag. You wrote a letter to the editor about 4 months ago. Let me tell you why you're wrong. He spent 10 minutes telling me why I was wrong. And then said, we need to continue this conversation. Drags me down to the bar. I'm now sitting in the bar in the hotel lobby of my very first convention, and that's John Campbell across the table from me. Now, John Campbell doesn't get to sit alone in the bar at a convention for very long. And 10 minutes later, I'm sitting at the table, and that's John Campbell, and that's Asimov, that's Lester Del Rey, that's Hal Clement, that's Gordy Dixon, and I'm saying I think I need to go to more of these.
That's what you call the bar panel, right?
And this is why you get stories from Ben at any time that you can. They are amazing. I yell aggressive compliments at people. That's what I do.
She really does.
I really do. And I usually get away with it. But sometimes people are like, I'm sorry, you're beautiful. I can't help it. I love this costume.
Actually,
about the costume, but
you really should have seen. Well, nobody has seen it yet because the video hasn't been uploaded unless you have DragonCon TV. But you should have seen her on Page the Stage. She was aggressively approving of everyone that walked across the stage. Our contestants, because she was one of our MCs this year, our contestants actually asked us to bring her back as a judge this year. So I was asked by Seska to invite her on the spot and basically make her very embarrassed until she said yes. So
obviously, I'm going to say yes.
You're going to be a judge?
So I love celebrating nerddom, right? Like, I love it. The more, I feel like the more we have the chance to celebrate each other, we don't have to agree on every fucking thing. But the more we find a chance to celebrate each other, everyone has something to celebrate. Like, y'all have cool ass t-shirts out there, and there are costumes, and I love the Hawaiian shirts, and like, there's so much to compliment of people, and so I think it's important to be genuine, to talk about the things we love, because that passion is really contagious. And then I find it to be a social lubricant for the things that we don't agree on, that we can still talk, and you're like, oh, I know she loves this thing I love, and I can tell she loves me. So, okay, yeah, let's get into this shit. So let's get into this shit. What would you love to see less of when it comes to gatekeeping in fandom? Do you like my segues? You're welcome.
People bringing their political beliefs to Facebook and then forcing them on everyone in fandom.
Oh, the internet yelling.
Yeah, because the reality is fandom and conventions should be a politics and religion-free zone, honestly, unless you're having the conversation of which political structure is better in, Battlestar Galactica, the Cylons, or the, humans. Or do we agree with Rosalind, or do we prefer Adama? Politics in that way, discussing them inside fandom, that makes sense. But bringing real-world politics and assigning some sort of intention to it is a very big problem. And it's one that I think the MarsCon fandom has experienced far too much this year.
Fair.
I'll be real with you guys. Like I'll get raw here.
No.
That's my problem. Is I am honest. That's what gets me in trouble. It sucks, guys. Like to have hundreds of people who are total strangers who don't know you have a vision of you that's not accurate at all. And think you are the worst things in the world because that's what they've made up for you. I mean, for years we've joked about Straw Larry, right? Because there's real Larry and there's Straw Larry, and you have Straw Man. And Straw Larry's a dick. That guy is Straw Larry is dangerous and mean and threatening and believes every horrible thing you can list off. And we crack a lot of jokes at it. We have a lot of fun. But I tell you guys, it's tiring. I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's wearying. It really is wearying, and it shouldn't be part of it. I should be able to disagree with somebody else about something in the world because we're humans, and we're not all going to agree on every topic. And that's fine, but we should be able to not worry about that stuff in other fields. I mean, if we're not directly talking about that thing, why does that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I literally met my best friend in the world for the last decade in fandom. And I think the world of her, we're literally sisters from another mother. She's the right half of my brain, I'm the left half of her brain. And that is actually somewhat a political joke because nobody thought we would ever be best friends because she's a Republican and I'm a socialist Democrat. And I do mean a diehard liberal socialist Democrat. I fall on the opposite side of the spectrum from damn near everybody that I come across. And you know what's great about it? I can agree to disagree. And so can she. So can she. She's in the back of the room. Her name's Saskia.
She heckles. We love her.
She hides.
All right, let's get a couple more thoughts from the panel, and then I will go over there, and then if we've got some questions, we can do that. So, thank you.
Yeah, so you guys actually bring up a good point, like the online community and attacking people for what seems like no reason or just a goad or response. That's an elicitation technique that online trolls have mastered. And they've mastered it because people keep falling into the trap of just simply partaking in the conversation. You just responding, even though it could be a masterfully crafted response, politically correct, it could be amazing. But because you have responded, you have acknowledged that troll, and that conversation has been allowed to continue and go on.
And people will use it to further their own agenda.
Yes, exactly.
Like it's going out of style.
Yeah.
They may actually agree with you on certain parts, but they will grab onto the parts that they don't agree with to try and further the agenda that they want to further. In the costuming community, we deal with this on a regular basis, and I know you've dealt with it at Worldcon, Ben. Because I know Kevin Roche very, very well because ICG.
He might actually hate you more than Larry.
I definitely know he hates me more than he hates Larry. And I'm good with it. But, when it comes down to gatekeeping, especially when you're dealing with stuff like costume contests and fandoms and things like that. It's not just politics. People will gatekeep over anything. How you look, your body type, your gender presentation, whether you're gay, whether they think that the character should be portrayed only in this manner, or if you take interpretation, is it okay? Gatekeeping is real, and the thing, we do gatekeeping panels at DragonCon on this stuff, and I literally sit there and go, just keep your mind open. If you can keep your mind open and look at it from a different perspective, maybe it won't make you angry, maybe they'll find something new about the fandom.
Yeah, that, and then looking into somebody's intentions too, because that's a really difficult balance. Like trying to get into a conversation with somebody and be real with it. In my opinion, that can only happen in person.
Yeah.
You will never get a more real response than talking to somebody in person. Online, you will never know. You will never know somebody's intention. You will never know what they're gonna do with your response, with your profile, or whatever, right? So yeah.
I find people are much less likely to just be a dick for no reason to in the person.
Oh, yeah,
turns out.
sure, right.
It's so weird.
Yeah, you know, when someone's smiling at you, it's awful hard to look at them and go, "You're the worst person in the world."
Well, part of the issue there is that the internet makes people think that they have bandwidth. They do not have bandwidth. The amount of bandwidth on the internet compared to the amount of bandwidth you have when you're dealing with somebody in person is tiny. And as human beings, we are evolutionarily designed that when we're interacting with people, we have a high bandwidth connection, because there didn't used to be all these ways. The way you talk to somebody was face to face. And those are high bandwidth connections. The internet, everybody thinks of as having high bandwidth, unless you're like me and have been there for 5 decades. But the concept that you think you are reading the other person because what you're seeing is their internet persona, and using the tools that as a human being you learned for dealing with people in person, it doesn't work. Those tools will fail you, and people, particularly younger people, you know, I'm in my 70s. I remember when this stuff was coming in for the first time. But for people who are in their 20s and 30s and have the internet as something that they had for their entire lives, they think that that means they've got all these tools because they grew up with it. Well, no, not really, because you grew up with it, but you didn't have 20,000 years of human
Evolution,
interaction.
right.
Yeah. I think people also forget that they're talking to somebody that's a real person on the opposite side of the screen. I mean, the reality is, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I'm just going to say it, and I love you because you're an elephant. That's awesome. No. I mean, I'm just saying, like, you would make a comment, and it was like they did not pay attention to the fact that you were a human being. They assigned no humanity to you whatsoever. And they would come in and they would attack and they would attack. And then when you turned around and treated them the same way, they would go, "How dare you? We're people!" And I'm going,
So is he.
hold up. Hold up. Let me just say something very quickly. Bachelors of sociology, bachelors of psychology, but masters of psychology. I know he's a human being. You know I'm a human being. You want us to treat you like a human being, but you won't treat us the same. It does not take 2 bachelors and a master's degree to figure out you're a hypocrite.
Well, having been on social media for years now, I've experienced all of this in numerous ways, and essentially it boils down to we just need to get rid of Twitter.
Oh, please. Can we get rid of Twitter, Facebook
This was
groups?
Facebook in this case.
Yes, but I mean, Twitter's the hellscape of the internet.
Oh,
let's be honest.
I know.
I would be happy
That's
to
my
put
natural
links just
hunting
on
ground.
display.
Like, when it comes to fandoms, it's not just, you know, certain things that you like. It could be just your favorite character. When someone asks that question, they immediately disregard someone's every opinion that they have about a series, specifically because they pick a certain character. But the thing that bothers me most about gatekeeping is when fans of the show think that they know best how the show should be written.
Absolutely.
That is the thing that frustrates me the
A
most.
show, a book.
A book.
Whatever
Yeah,
it is, a show,
like-
a series, any story that's out there.
I mean,
there are
I will-
fans who just...
I'll debate things on a like, oh, they could have done it this way, and then we could have seen this, or like, oh yeah, Game of Thrones season 8. Oh my God, please. Yeah, George never would write it that way, you know, that kind of thing. Like, those are fun things to discuss, but you don't gatekeep a whole fandom over it.
Yeah. Like, and just exactly what you said. The people who can agree to disagree, those are the people you want to seek out in the fandom. Those are the people who are understanding, whereas others will just try to get a rise out of you. And it's not even necessarily the fact where they're confrontational, and then when you go to their same level, it's not always just like, oh, how dare you do that? They're just going to use that against you. They want you to become the villain so that they can villainize you to everyone else.
Oh no, I
It's just-
wholeheartedly believe that because
Yeah.
they villainized me for standing up for Larry.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, like, literally people from my own political party who I have stood on protest lines with, and I have, you know, held signs and hung out with them and all of that. The minute I stood up for Larry, I was persona non grata, and it was perfectly fine to attack me and my family.
And I always feel bad because, like, for me, this isn't my first rodeo, and I've been around this for my whole career because I tend to be the nail that sticks up and being hammered. But one way I am elephant-like is the hide. I have elephant hide, and it's hard to get to me. But I always feel bad for people, decent, good, honorable, honest people who get rolled up in that. And they're like, oh, no, that's not true. This is the truth. This is reality. This is what actually happened. And they would just stating that is enough to bring the mob onto them. And I always feel bad about that.
But it's not your fault.
Well, to be fair, I mean, we stand up because we know targets are going to get painted on us, right? And that's okay. And honestly, I just want to make sure you understand, when I called you the elephant in the room, it was not, I think elephants are amazing, majestic creatures. Yes, you have a tough hide, and you have the tusks to take these people down when you need to.
My spirit animal's a manatee.
I love
I love it.
the call and answer. All right, we've got at least 2 questions or comments in here. Go ahead.
My spirit animal's Tanya.
The day that I met Larry was in LibertyCon 12 years ago. We were literally on a political panel, like you said. The premise was that sci-fi proposed something better than America. And Larry and I were very much on one side, and there were folks on the other side. But as a result of that conversation that we had during the panel, there were a number of folks at the con who came and talked to both of us as human beings. And I made profound friendships with folks who disagreed politically because we talked to each other as people.
I'm gonna jump off that because I made 3 amazing, wonderful friends here at MarsCon having discussions about exactly what was wrong with politics, why politics didn't work, and how if science fiction was applied to it and the structures built in worlds like Star Wars and Star Trek were used in our political landscape, how much better things would be. They were on the opposite side of the aisle from me then. One of them came over to the same side of the aisle as me over the next few years. None of them will speak to me now because of everything that happened this year. So let's talk about that. Like, people can jump.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
We can change, but then
But then they turn into gatekeepers.
The thing that is difficult there is that, for the most part, there are very few people who, in essence, live on both sides of the major divide. And it's not, I'm not just talking about the societal divide. You can say, this is a left-wing convention, this is a right-wing convention, this is a convention that Larry would be a welcome guest of honor, this is a convention where they would hate to have Larry.
I love that I'm a litmus test.
I know, you're the guy.
I think, honestly, I think it just all comes down to neuroplasticity. I mean, do we have the ability to accept change, accept something that's different?
I'm actually fairly libertarian.
Right?
The thing is that as each side splits, what you then see is that each side pulls themselves tighter and tighter to the extent that, well, you used to be on my side, but you've now said something heretical. And, well, you're now excluded, and it is difficult. Since I'm one of the people that lives on both sides of the split, what it means is that I get to be attacked by everybody.
I feel this in my soul. I'm a 2A supporting Democratic Liberal Socialist.
And, you know, I'm fine with it. As I say, I've been going to conventions for 50 years. I figure I will probably survive. But it is not easy to be shot at by both sides, and it makes you leave fandom, and that's a loss for everybody, because when you particularly lose the people who are comfortable with people on both sides of the split, those are the people who you really want in fandom, because you want to encourage the people who are saying, if we're all fans here together.
Here, we've got two more. I know I've got two, so I've got one over here, and then I'm going to come back to the middle. Go ahead back there.
One keyword, it seems like you guys are both talking about courtesy in general. It's just people being polite and courteous. So I think that's because we're really in media that's having to be redefined.
It's a good point, because I talked a lot about this in my big girl job days of there's a difference between nice and kind. And you can be nice, to be polite, to say the right thing, to do the whatever, and then you go home and you write your nasty shit on the keyboards. Or you can be kind, and you can be honest, and you can be direct, but being honest and direct doesn't mean everything you stand for is trash and you are trash. Trash.
Oh, absolutely not. Everything I stand for is absolutely 100% me.
Not trash.
Is it trash?
But it's that, right? It's kind is being direct, and it's not just I said what I wanted and I didn't give a shit what you thought about it, so I was direct. No, friends, courtesy. I think that's a great one. Not fake nice. That's bullshit.
I think it all boils down to also, you have to be willing to see that there are other perspectives. Just because you believe something so strongly that you will go out there and keyboard warrior and fight for it, doesn't mean that there aren't other perspectives that maybe by considering them before you type out the diatribe of 500 words that might get you flagged by the FBI. You can look at somebody else's perspective and say, okay, well, maybe they're coming from this, and maybe I'm reacting a little bit more than I should.
Yeah. Do you want to say what you just said?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, please.
You can disagree with kindness. It's not just, you can oppose people without being a dick about it.
You can be a dick.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Well, it depends on, what kind of fandom it is in general.
What the energy is you're receiving.
Yes,
Yeah.
and what kind of person it is that you're dealing with. When it's online, it's hard to tell, but, it's just being cordial and then feeling out how things are, but you don't always have to just agree with the person and then go back online.
I can't believe I thought this.
Yeah.
And you can always leave things open to interpretation too. Maybe you don't agree with something somebody's doing. I mean, I play an online game where we have an online chat room where everybody in the world can talk on the chat room. And of course, it's a war game, so everybody's killing each other. So everybody's going, "You're horrible, I hate you, blah, 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 blah." I go in and I go, "Okay, let's record some music. Pat Benatar, hit me with your best shot."
So, kind of going back to Ben's point about how the divide in fandom makes it very difficult for new people coming into fandom to really get involved in the community. What do we do about that? How do we foster more unity with it, as a community, but also as individuals at, not just at conventions, but in fandom as a whole?
Costume and prop making.
What I will say is number one, you yourself, everybody in this room, appreciate everybody who puts any kind of effort in it. Even if it's a store-bought costume, somebody picked that costume because it means something to them, right? They're not doing it to try to impress other people. Some people might be. But still, we shouldn't be approaching it that way. And to the point about arguments and online controversy and all that stuff. Arguments pass. They come and they go. They're quickly forgotten. Just as soon as they are brought up, they're forgotten. Then tomorrow it brings on an entire another argument. So don't get stuck on the fact that somebody poked and prodded day one on a particular post or a stance that you made or something like that, because tomorrow they forget about it and they move on to whatever's the next hottest topic. So don't get stuck on that. Be who you are, be honest, but I mean, just don't get hung up on it. If you're an introvert, kind of like me, social media is your way of kind of expressing who you are as a person and what your craft and what you love to do and the things that you like to do. But don't get stuck on the fact that somebody's going to poke and prod and oh, gotcha. It's like, okay, got it. Like, I'll sleep at night and cuddle up a little bit more, make myself feel better. But tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to keep doing what I love, right?
Especially if you recognize a character that's being cosplayed. It doesn't matter if it's store-bought, if they went to the thrift store and put the pieces together, if they made it. If you see something that you like and you recognize the character, even if it's a 2-second stop in the hallway with Emerald Adama, you rock! That will make somebody's day. Like, I remember when BSG was not really a recognized fandom back before, the second sci-fi reboot. And it's just, it makes people's day to know that you recognize them and that you acknowledge that the character's there and there's a connection even for a second.
Let's flip around a little bit at something Casey asked there. Because it's not all negative. There are actually some pros and cons here. And this is something Ben and I have talked about over the years. In that, yeah, there is a splintering. Yeah, there has been the same one side of the political divide, versus the other. But if we go back in time 20 years, we still had that, only we had it so that one side didn't represent it all. And because you couldn't, because you were scared to. And the people who did, I mean, there were some outliers, Jerry Correia. And you had guys, actually, this is more 50 years ago. Okay. And this is when I started, when I was a newbie, when I was the rookie. And I showed up and I was up for the Campbell Award for Best New Author. But immediately came out that I had owned a machine gun store. At the time, I owned a machine gun store when I wrote my first novel, so I clearly was out of the closet politically. I didn't get
You
much
were
say
out
in
of
that.
the closet a businessman?
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
For machine guns, though, which was kind of the problem.
Businessman.
And so immediately I caused controversy, and people started to try to gatekeep me. They immediately started to blackball me and gatekeep. I mean, within 24 hours of getting nominated for the Campbell, I knew I was coming in last place. I was just a given. It didn't matter. Which is ironic, because of everybody who I was up for the Campbell with, I've had the best career. No offense to them, there's some good dudes. But it was just, it's interesting to me though. So yeah, some things have changed for the worse and some things have changed for the better. But it's not just fandom. I think it's representative. Fandom is representative of the rest of the society we live in. And we've kind of come to a point where we did have where one side definitely owned culture. Like they had it, they owned it like 100%. It was theirs. The other side said, nah, not so much. We disagree. And now we're currently fighting that out. Where this goes, I don't know.
Yeah, but fighting is
not necessarily bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not bad, but it's pointless because we can all coexist without fighting. So.
Yeah. 2 comments. The first is that if we go back to the very first World Cup in 1939, we had 6 prominent fans at the time thrown out of the convention. And that feud between those groups of fans continued for many, 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 many decades until the last of them died.
Are you sure their children aren't doing it still?
On the other hand, that didn't blow things up in the same way, despite the utter vehemence, was because everybody recognized that fandom was in its infancy, fandom was fragile, and you don't haul out the machine guns and hand grenades, because if you blow it apart,
Not at each other, anyway. For fun. Sure.
if you blow it apart, fandom dies and everybody is worse off. So no matter what, don't do anything, not anything, that will endanger fandom as an institution. Nowadays, fandom, science fiction has taken over the world. Science fiction is very much prominent in our culture. People don't think of fandom as fragile, so they haul out major weapons and use it on other fans without saying, there are other fans, we don't dare injure fandom. We can argue like mad and catch me on the side, and I will tell you examples of how those arguments continued for decades. It didn't matter. You always knew, don't go for the jugular because they are a part of the community, and we don't have that anymore because people don't think of fandom as fragile.
Yep, so we've got a quick question, or a quick answer from Mera, and then I had 2 questions over here, and then I'll see what time I have left.
Yeah, so just to jump off what Ben was saying, you know Philip Gust. I know you know Phil Gust. So Phil Gust was the former president of the International Costumers Guild, and I'm sure you probably also knew Marty Gear. I mean, everybody knows Marty.
Yeah.
Marty was the guy that got me into costuming through DragonCon. And Marty had this vision that costuming would always be a beacon of hope and a way to unify fandoms and to bridge the gap and bring people in. And Phil always had this vision that, costuming was absolutely for everyone. Everyone should have the ability to dress up and be whoever they wanted to be, no matter what they wanted to be. And all of a sudden, fandom, while fandom's having this battle and trying to maintain itself inside itself and saying, don't break us, we had a lot of pushback from the outside, right? Because especially in the costuming community, people wanted to limit our abilities to express, like, that big evil mouse that likes to say nobody can use his images. And so Phil Gust actually ended up going to Congress and arguing in front of Congress to protect the freedom of expression through costuming. It was the first time anybody had ever put such a thing out there, and he started doing it, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 1987? Yeah, he started doing it in 1987, and the last time he testified in front of Congress was in 2014, I think, 2013, 2014. We're still having those arguments with everybody on the outside. Why are we arguing with each other? Sorry, that's all.
No, I mean, that's humans, right? Like, we have the same arguments generation after generation after generation. Aaron, go ahead.
This isn't politics. Change. One type of gatekeeping that I have not only noticed, but I've been guilty of, is the earnest info dump. Let me tell you about what I'm interested in, and you're not going anywhere for 45 minutes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You just called me out for why I do that.
I know, this is really attacking. I don't know.
And I want to let people know that can be very daunting to the people that you're trying to recruit into the fandom, because if they have to withstand a PowerPoint presentation or a lecture or whatever before...
Have you been to my DragonCon panels? I'm worried.
All I'm saying is that tends to put them off, and you need to have a softer touch. And this is something that I have struggled with, because this is a thing I let me share with you. So I'd like to ask the panel, how do you restrain that nerdy overshare impulse while still trying to recruit them into the fandom and not scare them away?
Okay, I'm only going to try and give 7 sentences here.
10 words.
I can't do 10 words. I've told you. I am not known for brevity. No, but I mean, basically, a lot of fandom has neurodivergence, and I myself am also neurodivergent. Atypical autism back in 1986 underneath the DSM-3, right? So I try to look at everybody and go, don't talk any longer than you'd be willing to listen to.
Yeah.
And so the only exception to that is when I do panels and they tell me, yeah, we need you to do 45 minutes on adaptive cosplay and teach people how to make costumes that fit wheelchairs and service dogs and things like that, in which case I do PowerPoints. But yeah, it's that, you know, the info dump. My mom always used to say, when you talk to somebody, Mera, don't just walk up and go, hi, my name is Mera, and I like cats, and I do this, and I play the violin, and I speak 19 languages, and, you know, all the, you know, don't give them everything about you in one shot. Hold it back. Let them get to know you. And so I got really good at that. Ask Seska how long it took her to find out I had family members other than my mother and my kids. So
It's also ask questions. Like, don't just talk, also ask questions.
Yep.
You wanna,
okay, it was a lot longer than 7. I'm sorry.
You're great. You're doing great. I love it. We're just, anyone else want to jump in?
Sure. It's all about just letting everyone be able to share their opinions. And it also depends on the dynamic when you're initially meeting the person. If there is an awareness of which one is the senior member of the fandom, let the more inexperienced person talk first. Find out more about them, learn what they're interested in, and find common ground that you can both start sharing with each other. We all have the tendency, because there's all things that we're passionate about, we're all going to want to share that passion with others, and it's just learning to recognize the signs of, okay, I need to step back and let the other person talk for a minute.
Love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, throwing out those statements, kind of like testing the waters, where you're like, okay, how involved in this are you, or what kind of effort am I willing to put out there, right? Because for a lot of people, like when you get a fandom you're excited to talk about, it's hard to restrain yourself. But gauging the interest by throwing out those really intricate questions, like, okay, if I asked you what was the third sword that you get as Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, who in this room can tell me? I could tell you. I could tell you right now. It's the Mithril Saber. Did anybody else know that?
Yeah.
Really? That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some.
But yeah, I mean, just throwing out the questions to gauge the interest, and then seeing, okay, this is a person that I'm going to consume all of your time with my knowledge.
We just became best friends. Yeah.
You and I are going to be having a conversation.
Okay, we just, sorry.
That's just practicing social interaction, because man, I am guilty of that. And I just gotta recognize, when their eyes start to glaze over, I'm like, oh, okay, I should probably back off now. I have an 11-year-old, and if you have a really smart 11-year-old, you know, like that 11-year-old will learn about some topic, and then that's all he'll talk about. And so it'll be like, for a month, every conversation will be about tanks. And it's like, Dad, did you know that the tiger had? But he'll just like go off, right? And right now it's Lord of the Rings, right?
So they think you're allowed this?
Don't stop.
Yeah, it's whatever the topic is, and we're the same way as that enthusiastic 11-year-old. And just watch for when your parents' eyes are glazing over. Back it off 30% squirrely, Dan. Okay.
Ben, anything you want to add?
Sort of a related thing is that, as with most of fandom, certainly the fandom that I grew up in, we all want to learn things. What I can say is I never learned anything from anybody who agrees with me on 100% of things, because if they agree with me on 100% of things, there's nothing for me to learn from them. You learn from people who have a different viewpoint, and you should treasure learning new things, because that's what fandom's about. And the way you do that is find people who know things that you don't, who may have a different viewpoint, who may have anything where you aren't the same, because if you're completely the same about everything, why do you need two of you?
The world is lucky to have one. So we are actually out of time. So I'm so sorry. I know there were more questions, and I'm sorry. I know I'm so sorry. But we have to let the next panel start. So sure, we can just camp out here. This is our room now. You're welcome.
No.
So we're gonna just do a real quick where you can say like one thing you're gonna be on this weekend. You want people to come see you, or one thing they should go buy of yours right now. Phoenix.
I mean, subscribe to the YouTube. That would help.
Boom. I love it. Where can they find your YouTube?
Well, on YouTube.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just Phoenix Night. I talk about RWBY, and I'm going to eventually branch into other anime and fandoms. But if you want to come to an anime panel, there's another one happening in this room in 2 hours, or in 1 hour at 4.
Woo. Nice.
So.
Love it. Mera.
I'm just looking at my schedule, realizing I don't have a break tomorrow between
We all
11 o'clock in the morning and 8
I know. I love that. That's why I said what we're gonna do. I'm giving you that.
Okay, so at 5 o'clock, so all of my panels are in here. And so you can find me at 5 o'clock this afternoon, and then basically in here from 11 o'clock tomorrow morning until 8 o'clock tomorrow night, with the exception of the costume contest, which is from 12 to 2. Yes, I know that's weird scheduling. And that's also in here. Actually, you can't find me in here. So,
Mera lives here now?
no.
Yeah, okay.
But you can find me also at prophouse42.com. You can find me on Overwatch, Call of Duty, or Ebony server 1400. By the way, if you play Ebony and you're looking for a new server, we have a ton of Battlefield keeps open and ready for new players. And we are going for All-Stars next time. So.
I love it.
So I'm a DMC guy, so that's
Yeah, I'll also be in here at 5 o'clock to talk about the motivation for prop making costumes. YouTube, the Prop Slayer, or Instagram, Prop Slayer Studio.
okay. I'm in a bunch of panels, but I'll be in here late tonight moderating one called Everyone's a Critic at 11 o'clock. So
Maybe you can ask more questions then. Similar, right? Thank you for everything. I love it.
That's 12 o'clock.
And I'm on another panel later this afternoon about historical science fiction.
He was there.
Well, I go well beyond when I started because there's an amazing amount of stuff from the 30s, 40s, and 50s that I love to talk about because that's when the field was being written.
Nice. And you can catch me at thank you. But you can catch me at marisawolf.com or marisawolf.net. I go both ways. And if you want, tomorrow, come check out the Bane Roadshow and you can see my debut solo novel.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that. Wait, when's the roadshow?
The Roadshow, right, it's tomorrow, 2 to 4.
2 to 4. Oh crap, I'm in here.
I know.
Okay, I gotta find you somewhere else.
Well, fine. Well, I'll be with you at the costume contest.
Oh, well, that's
anyway,
true.
you guys were wonderful. Thank you. Let us, cheers to all of us trying to make this a better community. So appreciate you.
And you can always find some of us in the bar.